Hey everyone, welcome to my series where I'll be solving all the problems in SQL 50. Today we're going to be tackling the first question, um, recyclable and low-fat products. So my goal with the series is to kind of go through each problem and give you guys the solutions, the methodology to solve those problems, and also have a kind of general framework to tackle these SQL questions, similar to how there's some very established frameworks on how to tackle DSA questions. So hopefully when you have this kind of system, when you're tasked with a new problem, maybe like an extremely difficult one given in an interview, you're not just fumbling around trying to fit in all the information you know, and you kind of have more of a system to work through. So for this problem, going through the system I've created here is not going to be so complicated. It's a pretty simple question, but hopefully while we apply the framework to this simple problem, you're kind of able to develop that understanding of what I'm talking about, right? So first I'll go through the system and then we'll go through the question itself and kind of see how we can apply it, right? So when looking at any SQL question, we're going to first identify what we need to solve the problem. Then we're going to see if we have the information we're looking for. If not, we're going to identify what we need to get that information we're looking for and then try again, right? So after we identify what we need to get that information we're looking for, like if we need to calculate some value or maybe do some kind of aggregate, then we're going to identify what we need to solve the subproblem, right? So like if we're trying to aggregate something, we're going to see what information do we need to aggregate on, or if we're trying to calculate a value, what columns do we need to calculate that value in question, right? So let's go through question 1757, recyclable and low-fat products, and kind of apply this methodology. So in this question, we're tasked with writing a solution to find the IDs of products that are both low-fat and recyclable. Return the result table in any order. The result format is in the following example. So I'm sure you guys do this, but just as a reminder, I always like to look at the example because it kind of clarifies this text. Like right now, this question is pretty simple, but it clarifies this text jargon into kind of visual format, so you can kind of see what the resulting table will look like, right? So we're going to be outputting a product ID, and we're going to be outputting the products where there's a Y in low fat and a Y in recyclable. Okay, cool. So let's go through this framework and kind of see how we can solve this problem. First, we're going to identify what we need to solve the problem. So we need product IDs. Okay. And let's see if we have the information we're looking for. Yeah, we do. It's the product ID in the products table. So let's code that up first. So we're going to select product ID from products. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. And then the next part is, so in this case, we had the information we're looking for, so we're going to try again and jump back to the top, right? Identify what we need to solve the problem. So we want to get the products that are both low fat and recyclable. Do we have that information we're looking for? Yeah, we do. It's in those low fats and recyclable columns. Okay, so then let's figure out how we're gonna get those, right? In SQL, when you're trying to select rows from a table based off of certain criteria, we generally use a where statement. If you're doing some kind of aggregate function, this would instead be a having, oops, but we're not doing any kind of aggregation. So we're just going to be using where. And in future questions, if you're not familiar with having, it'll hopefully be a little bit more clear, right? So we're going to do where low fats is equal to yes. But that's not that's not the only thing we're looking for. We're also, I'll keep it on one row just to keep it simpler. And we want recyclable to be also yes. Does that kind of make sense, right? We are selecting the product ID from products, but we're only selecting the product IDs where the corresponding product ID has a Y in low fats and a Y in recyclable. So this should hopefully give us the products that are recyclable and low fat. So let's run this query. And cool, this was accepted here. So hopefully once you submit the question, it also passes. And as we can see, it does. So there are optimal ways to write SQL queries, but for now, I wouldn't concern myself too much with the runtime when you're working on SQL questions. Like for this one, there's It's a pretty simple question, so the solutions are pretty straightforward. But in the future, when you get to more complex problems, there's going to be a variety of ways to solve the problems. So rather than trying to just learn the most efficient way right away, I would actually focus on learning all the different solutions, and then from those solutions kind of learning like what are the trends that tend to lead to more optimal solutions. So again, for this question, it's pretty straightforward. I hope you understood. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or even suggestions on how I could uh, do these videos a little bit better, or a better way to solve the question. This question, I don't know if there's going to be that much of a more optimal way, but if you guys have other solutions, I'd love to hear them. So yeah, that's the first question in SQL 50, and I'll see you guys next time.